Hello, everyone, and welcome to Walking Through the Bible. The life of a Christian is not always enjoyable. We do face times of sadness, of disappointment, of pain, and of death like everyone else does. And in those times, it can be very tempting to believe that the Lord has abandoned us, to feel that the love of God is far away, and that He does not hear our prayers. But even though a Christian may feel that way, is it really true? And how should the answer to this question cause us to react? Let's find out in Psalm 13. So if you have a Bible with you, you can turn to the book of Psalms, to Psalm 13. We're going to be reading verses 1 to 6. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Psalms 13, beginning at verse 1. To the chief musician, a psalm of David. How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long will my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and hear me, O Lord my God. Enlighten my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death, lest my enemies say I have prevailed against him, lest those who trouble me rejoice when I am moved. But I have trusted in your mercy. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord, because he has dealt bountifully with me. Psalm 13 purports to be a psalm of David, and there's no reason to doubt that. It's written to the chief musician of the temple, meaning that David intended it to be sung in the temple worship. Although we don't know the exact time of David's life that these feelings and words would refer to, it's easy to see how they might fit into the time that David was on the run from King Saul, for David was on the run from Saul for quite the number of years, as we saw in our study of 1 Samuel. The reason for this conclusion, and say not the period of David's run from Absalom, is for a man of faith to get to the point of feeling abandoned by God, who promised him a kingdom, would require a number of years. David trusted in the plan of God, in the wisdom of God, and in the faithfulness of God. So to feel in the presence of God with that frame of mind would be expected. Now, it's not that David's trust in the Lord in this psalm waned, but his physical weariness did shine through here, which would certainly fit with years of being on the run. As such, the psalm begins in a rather somber tone. How long, O Lord? You can almost see David saying, will things ever change? Will I be in sorrow forever? Will my enemy always be exalted over me? Will you forget me forever, or will you always hide your face from me? Now, God did not do either of these things, for David had not sinned in running from Saul, nor was David being punished for some past sin like he was when he had to run from Absalom. David was suffering at the hands of a wicked man for nothing that he did. But that the Lord hadn't immediately dealt with it, or dealt with it in a time frame amenable to David, had caused David to feel abandoned by the Lord. Now, there's a couple of ways David could deal with this sense of abandonment. One, a good way, and one, a bad way. Let's deal with the bad way first. The bad way would be to question God, to claim to know better than God, or to curse God for his inaction. Job did some, but not all of these things during his speeches. He didn't understand why God liked to cause him to suffer so much, even though God wasn't the cause of his suffering, and Job thought he had the right to know why God allowed him to suffer. He thought he could question God for God's actions, something that he found out at the end of the book was a foolish notion. That is not what David did here. He did not demand an answer from God for his suffering or God's seeming inaction. Instead, he pled with God for action. He didn't demand it, but he pled for it. He wanted the Lord to enlighten his eyes, meaning end his suffering, so he wouldn't die at the hands of his enemies, and his enemies believe that they had won, not only against David, but against God too. Were these bad things to plead for? Absolutely not. Pleading with God for mercy is totally within God's will that we do. Demanding it is not, but pleading for it very much is. Now, will God always answer our prayers in the way we want? In other words, will he always remove our suffering? No, he won't. They could be being used as a test to see if we will still follow God, but they could also be being used as a hedge to keep us out of trouble. For instance, God could prevent us from becoming wealthy because God knows our heart and what that wealth could do. Now, he could remove that hedge if that's what we truly want, and he could allow us to suffer because of that if we go off into sin, but we shouldn't always see suffering as somehow a useless thing, for it can build our character and actually cause us to grow closer to God. And that's what David sees here. He desires that his suffering be removed, but regardless, David will trust in the mercy of the Lord and rejoice in the Lord's salvation. David will sing to the Lord, because even in suffering, the Lord has dealt bountifully with him. Think about that. David was a lowly shepherd who God raised up to the court of the king and promised to be made king. David didn't deserve such, but God promised such. But sometimes with big things, big problems arise because of them. David could face those problems, though, through God, and David could overcome, ultimately, with the salvation the Lord provides. For the Christian, there will be bad times, troublesome times, sorrowful times, but the Lord has not abandoned us. He is not hiding from us. He's there, and he will listen to our prayers. But through it all, we can always trust in the Lord and his spiritual promises, for he has promised to carry us through if we will continue to walk by faith. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Psalms 14, verses 1 to 7, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. We thank you for watching Walking Through the Bible today. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them below. But if you like this video, we ask that you consider subscribing to our channel so you won't miss out on other videos in our series, as well as share this video among your friends so that the saving message of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.